This is VOA News via remote. I'm Liz Palka. U.S. President Joe Biden signed the $1 trillion infrastructure bill into law on Monday afternoon in Washington, D.C., representing an historic achievement at a time of deeply fractured politics. The bipartisan signing ceremony happening on the White House lawn in Washington, but the compromises needed to bridge the political divide suggest that the spending might not be as transformative as President Biden has promised for the U.S. economy. Historians, economists, and engineers interviewed by the Associated Press welcome the president's efforts, but they stress that the $1 trillion is not nearly enough to overcome the government's failure for decades to maintain and upgrade the country's roads, bridges, ports, pipes, and other infrastructure. Monday's virtual meeting between President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping is their first face-to-face president-to-president encounter since Biden took office. The two spoke by phone earlier this year. As these two different men face off virtually, they are expected to discuss several weighty topics, including cybersecurity, trade, nuclear nonproliferation, and the status of Taiwan. The White House has downplayed the historic encounter, calling it a meeting instead of a summit. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman will host her counterparts from Japan and South Korea for talks in Washington on Wednesday. That's according to State Department spokesperson Ned Price on Monday. Price said Sherman will also meet individually with officials from the two countries this week. He added the State Department would later provide further details on the meetings. This is VOA News. Rising inflation in the U.S. may be putting the brakes on Democrats' efforts to push President Biden's signature package of climate and social spending measures through Congress before the end of the year, even though it's not clear that the measures would add to rising prices. House Democrats are pushing for a vote on the package known as the Build Back Better Act in an effort to move it forward in advance of the Thanksgiving recess next week. The capital, Berlin. COVID-19 cases are surging in Germany. The capital, Berlin, that is, joined several German states Monday in limiting access to restaurants, cinemas, museums, and concert venues to only people who have been vaccinated or recently recovered from the disease. The country's infectious disease control center reported Monday that the country's number of new cases per 100,000 residents in the past 7 days climbed to 303, the first time the rate climbed over 300 since the pandemic began. The record comes just 1 week since an unprecedented jump to over 200 new cases per 100,000 residents. Only 67.5% of the German population is vaccinated. The highly contagious Delta variant has run rampant through the unvaccinated population as the temperature drops and people stay indoors. The U.S. Department of Interior and 16 other federal agencies committed Monday to honoring Native American tribal rights through the government policymaking and regulatory actions. President Biden made the announcement at a White House Tribal Nation Summit. Belarus appeared to be moving to de-escalate a long-running standoff with Poland and the European Union. Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko said he is preparing to start repatriating around 4,000 asylum seekers camped out in freezing temperatures at the border with Poland. Lukashenko was quoted by state news agency Belta saying, "Active work is underway in the area to convince people to please return home." Poland, as well as Lithuania and Latvia, have been militarizing their borders with Belarus to try to stop record numbers of migrants from attempting to cross their borders. The countries accuse Lukashenko of weaponizing human desperation by using asylum seekers as pawns in reprisal for the EU's imposing sanctions on Belarus for last year's disputed elections. Via remote, I'm Liz Palka, VOA News.